order.
This conference will now be recorded.
I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Board of Commissioners for the Lake Stevens Sewer District. This is December 17th, 2020. It is a utility committee meeting we share with our partners with the City of Lake Stevens. And we'll go ahead and call it to order. I think one thing we just wanted to, because we know that in 2021, the district is going to, the meetings shift year to year. So I think for 2021, I think the Board of Commissioners have to elect a chair for that. And we wanted to be able to at least do that real quick. And we also just want to add another item to the agenda, if we could, under just action items under E, which just would be pretty much kind of laying out what we want to do for the schedule, as far as we've spoken in the past of trying to get the most out of our meetings, being able to say, okay, by this meeting, we'd like to talk about budget issues, talk about capital issues and that. So I think that would be something we'd like to add under E, if that would be acceptable. But I think to begin with, I think just trying to get the Board of Commissioners for Lake Stevens Sewer to be able to elect at least the chair like we've done in the past. So
I think that makes sense. I think Jennifer, this is her first meeting. Maybe a quick introduction of our new commissioner.
Yes, so we do have Commissioner Jennifer Stevenson. She's lived in the community quite a long while with her husband and her two sons, and so we would love to welcome her to this very first meeting, which is a utility meeting that we hold at least once a quarter, following our unification agreement that we have with the city. And so I think you may know, some may know her through the community, but she does own her own business. But I'll let her speak and say good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is looking forward to just serving the community. So thank you to my fellow commissioners too. So.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. So I don't know if there's a motion, if one of the commissioners wants to make, if we have something in mind in regards to chairing next year's.
Oh, I have something in mind. I'd make a motion that we nominate Commissioner Lawrenson to step into the role of the utility chair from the district for 2021.
I second that.
So it has been moved and seconded. I will accept that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Well, I'd love to turn it over to the current chair, which is Councilmember Gary Petershagen. And again, like I said, just love to add that, but I'd like to get his input and input of the rest of the committee.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. First item on the agenda, assuming everyone can hear me, is roll call. And I'm just going to kind of run through as to who we have here. Myself, representing the city, Gene Brazel, Mayor Brett Gailey, and Councilmember Marcus Tagent. We do have staff Barb Stevens. And I think that is it, unless somebody from the city's on caller 01. From the sewer district, we have Commissioner Kevin Koshi, Commissioner Dan Lawrenson, and Commissioner Jennifer Stevenson. Welcome, Jennifer. And also staff members Tanya Christopherson, Mariah Lowe, Jonathan Dix, and Tara Bighouse. Who else do we have here? Paul Knight, Barry Baker from Gray and Osborne. So with that, we do meet our attendance requirements. Let's move on to action items. Approval of meeting minutes, September 22nd. It's been a while since we met, but hopefully reviewing those will refresh some memories, and hopefully they're acceptable to everyone. If we're going to have a motion to approve.
There's two items that are in there that I just wanted clarity on. It would be item C, the 2% sewer tax, and maybe this would be add an agenda item. There was some discussion around how we're going to recommunicate that wasn't occurring. I think it was in printed materials on 2 different times, including a public meeting. And so there's some discussion last time about, I'd like it, if we could, entertain an update on what's been done since that meeting on clarifying that to the public. That'd be one request I'd have just as I was reviewing this morning. And the second one, item D, when we're talking about the lake level piece, if we could just have an update on that one, just a discussion about that one at some point in the meeting today, that would be great. But as far as what's written in the meetings minutes, I'm good with.
Any other comments, questions, suggestions? Hearing none, you have a motion to approve the minutes September 22nd.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Sounds like unanimous approval. How about if we tackle those two items that Kevin brought up right now, since the sewer tax was identified or mentioned at the Southeast Lake Stevens annexation. Gene, do you want to handle that?
I sure can. It's my understanding that the information that went out was incorrect. It was a typo, and it has been corrected on the information.
Final result is there is no utility tax that the city is proposing on sewer.
So when we corrected, do you mean there was we published something, or we put something on the website, or what did we exactly do to clarify that to the public?
It was my information. My understanding, the information that was on the website was corrected. I don't think we reissued information out to the public.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to take a meeting here this past week, and if that question came up or not, but Mayor Gailey, did that question come up that you recall?
It did not come up specifically on the sewer district side. But the discussion of a utility tax in that area did come up, but not specifically on the sewer side that I recall.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and I think, you know, given where we're at, that I'm happy to hear that it's correct on the website. You know, the sewer district tax, of course, is a really big deal given the effort that's been put forth to keep rates at the same rate they've been for 5 years. When we start talking about, you know, a tax that just public sees that as a potential rate increase, so it's a sensitive area to me. So I just wanted to clarify what we had done to, you know, assure the public that that wasn't occurring, at least at this time. Okay, thank you. That clears it for me, unless there's other discussion.
If there's information out there, Commissioner Koshi, that we've missed somewhere, please let me know. We'll make sure that gets corrected. But we did do a run through to try and find everything that might have had that misinformation.
And I'm not aware of any, so thank you.
Okay, questions about the lake level. We did commission a study here a week or two ago to study the outflow of the lake in hopes of coming up with some direction on that. One of those directions is to lower the outflow of the lake because of the amount of siltation that's occurred over the years, and hopefully that would get some water moving out of the lake. Also, there's some downstream studying going on as far as potential blockages that will be evaluated. And that study is to be completed, I believe, in the first 6 months here of 2021, with hopefully some action not too late afterwards. Does the mayor want to add anything to that, or Gene?
Yeah, sure, I can jump in on that. So we did receive the study back, and it did talk about several different areas that we needed to touch when it came to the outflow of the lake. One is reconstructing the weir, also a possible dredging of the outflow, and then as well as a couple of different culverts that would help dissipate the problems that we have downtown. So as we go into this next study, one of the things we're going to do is get all the stakeholders who need to sign off on any action in the same room within the next week or two, and see what would please everybody, so we're not planning to plan several years. We need to get something done soon. I'd love to be able to get into this next fish window and start some work along the process. So that is our current plan.
And just to kind of refresh, the district's interest, and I have a personal interest as well, to be transparent, but the district's interest is as the lake level, or we don't have sufficient flow or being able to handle the water in downtown, the water level rise that goes over manholes, we end up with infiltration of the sewer system. We pump it from the geographically farthest spot to our plant to treat water that wouldn't need to be treated. So that's kind of the official interest. The two comments I have that, as talking to a fellow community member, this might be helpful to the city, it might not be. One was they commented that, when the drainage district was absorbed, it was absorbed by Snohomish County. And so I don't know if there's any additional encouragement, leverage, or what have you around that, since that, certainly part of that drainage responsibility was the drainage district before it was absorbed by Snohomish County. So I don't know if there's an angle there from a city perspective, but I thought I'd offer that up. And the other thing would be, I don't know, I think we, the community, city, brought in sand on, into as part of the renovation of North Cove Park. I'm not sure how much of that, that's right by the outflow. If sand was put on that beach, it's just going to be washing down that outflow. So I don't know if that's something just to consider in the future, or to think about. So, but I appreciate the update on that. I have no more questions.
Hey, Kevin, question for you. You've been in the community and your family's been in the community forever, right? Do you know when the last time the outflow was actually dredged and cleaned out?
I don't. I don't know if it ever has, as far as I know. I know that the where was kind of put in there before. There was varying versions of it before environmental concerns and process are as heightened as they are now, but that's about the extent of my knowledge. I could ask, my father and mother may know. If I can go chase that down, if that'd be helpful.
I don't know if it'd be helpful. I've been asking as many folks as I can on it, and no one can give me a good answer. No one remembers. And, there's sections of the outflow that have 3 feet of sediment in it. So I would venture to guess it's probably never been done.
All right. Well, I was raised by a guy who never forgot anything growing up, so I'll ask him and we'll see if he remembers.
Yeah, let me know.
All right.
You could also ask, Ken Withrow used to do it all the time through Rotary years ago when I was a Rotarian. So Ken Withrow and some of the other guys would go and do it.
Yeah, I know Brent Kirk.
Ken's over in Tulane.
Yeah, Brent Kirk, who used to be a commissioner with obviously the district, knows a lot of history on some of that stuff, because I know that he had set up some of the stations with, I think with Withrow and that under the bridge, as far as monitoring stations over time. So I think he might have some history on that. I think I remember also Commissioner Jim Steinrich, who's now a fire commissioner, was a district drainage district commissioner, and he may have some information on that stuff too.
Great. That's what we have
on that issue. Or?
Thank you.
Lots of additional resources, I guess. So anything else in regards to that? Anyone? No? Okay. With that, let's move on to item B, which in your little packet here, there is a resolution from the City of Lake Stevens 2020-01. And Lake Stevens Sewer Utility Committee agreeing to a collaborative transfer of the unified sewer system. So that document is before us. And would the mayor like to take this on first?
You bet. I'll jump in on this. So as everyone knows, the Lake Stevens City Council passed an ordinance in which, in order to assume the sewer district under the RCWs, and we are in that process of doing the assumption. And what we would like to do is pass this resolution today that agrees that this committee will do everything it can to do a good, amicable, collaborative transfer of the sewer district over to the city. And with that, so that we can create the discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion to pass resolution number 2020-01, a resolution of the Lake Stevens Sewer Utility Committee agreeing to a collaborative transfer of the unified sewer system from the Lake Stevens Sewer District to the city of Lake Stevens.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
That was seconded by Marcus. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Yes, correct.
Any discussion on resolution 2020-01?
Yeah, Commissioner Lorenzen here would love to just be able to have a word on that. So, you know, we were a little blindsided by the city ordinance that was passed out of executive session on the 8th of this month by the city council, where 1108 was passed. A little bit of history. Obviously, the sewer district back in the day with commissioners and the city with council members came into a unification agreement in 2005 to be able to unify at a certain date that was specified in the future, which would be 2033. There were trade-offs in regards to this unification agreement at that time that were made because the city obviously wanted to grow. I was an employee of the city at that time. I was involved in that when I was there. I worked for the police department as part of the police association / guild. I remember having specific talks with, at times, it was Council Member Blackwell, and Mayor Walty eventually worked with the commissioners at that time, which were Jack Hatlin and Jim Mitchell. This was something that had to be done because, speaking in the city's aspect, being part of the city, we didn't know whether the city was going to financially survive, knowing that the sanitary sewer system that the city had just was not meeting any of the needs and needed a lot of repair. They made an agreement over that time to be able to unify where one day it would come together. But in that time, the city would turn over that system to the district so it could upgrade it. The city also gave some debt to the sewer district, which the sewer district took on as part of that, with the also promises of upgrading the downtown system. You move forward into this timeline as a lot of these have done. It has worked. I would say that the commissioners at that time, along with the council members at that time and the mayor, they had the foresight to see that this was a great partnership that still is working to this day. They've put a lot of things in there. It took this off of the plate of the city because obviously the city could not and did not have the financial means to be able to sustain a sewer system. We move forward in this thing, and I look at this unification agreement, and it's a legal binding contract that we have with each other. The district is living up to its part of this legal binding contract. It goes until 2033, and I understand that we have been visiting this issue for many years now, it seems like, because it constantly comes up that they want to unify earlier. We have 12 years left in this contract. I understand if the city was a few years out that we'd want to maybe push this forward, but that's not the case. This is 12 years. The Board of Commissioners, we passed resolution number 990 this morning, which is the resolution by our, which reaffirms the district's commitment to our 05 unification agreement with the city of Lake Stevens, following the timelines and the annexation agreements that we put in place not to against any annexations that the city may be trying to put forth in order to grow. I think it's just one of those things that we were never notified. Nobody gave us, I guess, the courtesy to be able to at least say, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. And suddenly we along with, I think, the community kind of get blindsided for the very fact that this ordinance that the city has decided to pass, wanting to just make an arbitrary assumption that they're going to take over right away without any negotiations whatsoever. The reason this agreement was put into place, because it recognized the RCW in the future that cities or municipalities have in regards to assuming a special purpose district once it grows to a certain size. But this also recognized the fact that there would be this transition by 2033, not just this arbitrarily, we don't want to do anything anymore, we're going to take it and move our way. So that I want to be able to, I'm more than happy to speak if you guys want to talk about resolution number 990 that we have forward, but I'll let my other commissioners also speak if they may have something.
Dan, just because I mean, we passed the thing 45 minutes ago, and I doubt our city partners have had a chance to even be aware of it. I would recommend you read, or one of us reads the resolution, just so the city's got, I mean, I think you've captured the history well, and I think you've captured the gist of it well. You know, either absorbed by ordinance or you absorbed by contract, and we have a contract, and we reaffirmed it this morning. But I would suggest we read 990, so that's on the table. I do have some other comments, but I think that would be appropriate at this time. If that's all right with you, Jennifer. Okay.
So if the rest of the committee would indulge me, I could ask that one of our staff members sends a copy email to each of you if you have access and want to see it now. But it was posted according to the law on our notification. But resolution number 990 is a resolution of the Board of Sewer Commissioners of Lake Stevens Sewer District, Snohomish County, Washington, confirming sewer district to the Unified Sewer Services and Annexation Agreement and the timeframe set forth therein. Whereas the Lake Stevens Sewer District is a sewer district organized under Title 57 of the Revised Code of Washington, the district, and operates a system of sewerage in and around the urban growth area of Lake Stevens, Washington. Whereas as the city of Lake Stevens, the city, and the district participated in discussions involving the district taking over the city's failing city sanitary sewer system, including the district building a new treatment plant to treat the sanitary sewage from the Lake Stevens urban growth area. The city at the time did not have the tax base or bonding capacity to deal with its failing sanitary sewage system, to consider expanding its own sanitary sewage system to accommodate likely city annexation areas or contribute to a new treatment plant. Whereas in 2005, the district and the city were both aware of the two methods that sewer districts could be assumed by cities under Chapter 35.13a RCW. By agreement pursuant to RCW 35.13a.070, or by ordinance pursuant to RCW 35.13.8.020.030. If a city has entered into agreement that states the terms of assumption of the sewer district pursuant to RCW 35.13a.070, it cannot later alter those terms unilaterally by adopting an ordinance under RCW 35.13a.020 or RCW 35.13a.030. Whereas the city and the district chose to negotiate the City of Lake Stevens and Lake Stevens Sewer District Unified Sewer Services and Annexation Agreement dated May 23rd, 2005. The unification agreement that among many terms provided for assumption of the district by the city through the unification agreement. Whereas pertinent terms, conditions, and actions resulting from the parties entering into the unification agreement, including the following. A, the unification agreement specified that the city sewerage system and the district's sewerage system should be merged into one system, the unified system, in step 1. And except for certain limited conditions, the district would be solely responsible for operating the unification system until 2033 or such earlier or date as the city and the district might mutually agree to step 2. B, Upon entering the unification agreement, the district committed to plan, engineer, finance, and construct a new treatment plant that would treat the sanitary sewage within the Lake Stevens urban growth area. The city needed this in order to proceed with additional annexations, but it did not have the tax base or bonding capacity to make improvements to the existing treatment plant or build a new one. The new treatment plant was built, and the date to pay off the bonds that financed it is the date that is set forth for transferring the unified system to the city, 2033. C, upon entering into the unification agreement, the district initially had to and continued to invest funds into the city's portion of the unified system because of the conditions it was in due to deferred maintenance while under the city's management. D, the city has benefited from provisions in the agreement in relation to annexations, such that the district would not oppose any annexation attempts by the city, and the district's developer extension agreements, as we know as the DEA, would have covenant consenting to annexations where the DEA property is contiguous to the city limits, in part because of the district's cooperation with respect to the city's desire for annexation provisions in the unification agreement. The city has grown to become a significant portion of the district. Whereas the city adopted resolution number 2017-12 and 2018-24, and the district adopted resolutions number 930 and 951 to evaluate the risks and benefits of an accelerated merger, and found insufficient evidence to proceed with accelerated merger in November of 2018. Whereas since 2018, the city and the district have exchanged detailed lists of issues related to the unification agreement, and the district has responded in good faith every time the city has raised an issue. The district has made an effort to be specific and relate its response to the terms of the unification agreement, as well as providing background on the origins of the agreement. Whereas because the unification agreement provides for mediation in its dispute resolution provision, the city and the district went through a session of mediation in 2020, which was largely successful in substantially reducing the issues in dispute. However, shortly after the mediation session, the city reversed its position on the areas of progress, which basically negated the progress made at the mediation. Whereas the city has not adequately discussed or presented why it's attempting to violate the unification agreement by adopting ordinance number 1108. In 2018, city and district financial staff evaluated the potential financial impacts of an accelerated merger and found no cost saving to a merger. And the latest 2020 one-sided Moss Adams study showed that there may or may not be a cost saving to a merger. Whereas because the city and the district in 2005 entered into unification agreement, relied on each other, undertook significant acts based on the unification agreement with the understanding that the city would take over the unified system during step 2 of this unification agreement in 2033, and not sooner unless the parties mutually agreed. It is appropriate for the Lake Stevens Sewer District's Board of Commissioners to reaffirm its commitment to the agreement and the process created by the RCW 35.13.0. Board of Sewer Commissioners for the Lake Stevens Sewer District, Snohomish County, Washington, as follows. 1. The unification agreement is hereby expressly acknowledged and reaffirmed as the operative interlocal agreement adopted on May 23, 2005 by and between the Lake Stevens Sewer District and the City of Lake Stevens pursuant to Chapter 35.13A of the RCW, Chapter 57 RCW, and Chapter 39.34 RCW. The unification agreement was and is the governing document identifying the process by which the City of Lake Stevens will assume the Lake Stevens Sewer District. 2. City of Lake Stevens Ordinance number 1108 is hereby rejected to the extent that it is in conflict with and or inconsistent with the unification agreement, and calls for an assumption of the unified system by the City of Lake Stevens prior to 2033 or a date mutually agreed upon by the city and the district. And 3, the district's administration and its attorneys are authorized to initiate necessary and appropriate legal proceedings as may be required in their judgment consistent with this resolution. Adopted by the Board of Commissioners of the Lake Stevens Sewer District, Snohomish County, Washington, at a special open public meeting held on the 17th day of December 2020. the following commissioners being present and voting. Commissioners Dan Lorenzen, President of the Board of Commissioners for the remaining term of 2020. Jennifer Stevenson, Commissioner with the Lake Stevens Sewer District, and Kevin Koshi, Secretary and Commissioner for the Lake Stevens Sewer District.
So while I have additional comments, I think it'd be appropriate to kind of maybe let our city partners respond or ask questions about that, or if you want me to roll into my comments, that would be fine.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so here we go. While the resolution passed today does a reasonable job to succinctly capture the history and key contractual obligations of both the city and the district, I'd like to take a few minutes to provide some additional context leading up to this meeting. The Lake Stevens Sewer District was established in 1959 with two purposes. The first was to protect the environment, and the second was to deliver maximum ratepayer value. The district built a new treatment plant, expanded access, and managed the unified system to the point of receiving near universal accolades from all parties involved, including Washington State Department of Ecology, Washington State auditors. In fact, we just completed a 2-year accountability audit, which was completely clean. That was the purpose of our morning's meeting. Independent performance audits by the same firm, Moss Adams, that provided the latest results on the cost savings or lack thereof. Ratepayers with process and infrastructure backgrounds, and even the combined city district utility committee that is meeting today. The district has not had a rate increase, will not have a rate increase for the 5th year in a row, has significant financial reserves, has reduced outstanding debt from 105 million to 74 million in just 5 years. The district has also supported each and every annexation the city has put forth, even those that have not aligned with the district's ratepayer value approach, those annexations that were not put to a public vote. In short, the city has received significant benefits and considerations from the first half of the unifications agreement time period, which was 2005 to 2020. The district's benefits and considerations largely come in the back end of the agreement, where the district is allowed, per the 2005 unification agreement, to continue to run the combined system until 2033, or 20 years after the commissioning of the new plant, which occurred in 2012. To deprive the district of their benefit and consideration, which occurs in the back half of the agreement, is at best disingenuous and at worst dishonest. The city has tried multiple avenues to gain early access to ratepayer assets, which are currently being managed by the district. There have been multiple cost-benefit analyses done. There have been commissioners recruited with the desire that they would vote to move the district over to city's control earlier than 2033. A previous commissioner was aggressively pursued, claiming he was no longer living in the district and therefore not qualified to hold office. This spurious pursuit was used in an attempt to leverage him to facilitate an early assumption of the district by the city. There were 2 attempts to leverage and block the 2018 bond refinance, which is saving ratepayers over $10 million in interest, as a reason to merge the district into the city. And only through public outcry was the city moved to remove the objections and let the bond refinance proceed. All this history brings us to 2020, where the city on Tuesday, December 8th, chose to make yet another attempt to gain premature access to ratepayer assets currently being managed by the district. The timing of this latest attempt comes at a time when the city has expressed ever-increasing frustration at the district's ratepayer value stance on a number of issues. These include, number 1, Costco. The city made multiple requests to the district to quote unquote stretch what the district could contribute to the infrastructure costs of Costco. The district's ratepayer value position was that development pays for development, and the district would not put the cost of Costco infrastructure on the backs of our ratepayers. In addition, the district has verbally expressed grave concern regarding potential alleged conflict of interest of a specific city council member by not recusing himself during critical votes related to Costco, while he was to benefit financially in property sales relating to Costco development. Number 2, proposed civic center. The district's insistence that the district's financial participation be limited to existing expense exposure, which provides minimal contribution as the ratepayers already own the district's Vernon Road Business Center free and clear. From a ratepayer value perspective, it does not make sense to increase expenses for the same square footage. Further, the district has offered up 2,000 square feet of office space to the city to create a one-stop shop permitting office where we co-locate both district and city staff. This would, in part, help avoid having to invest in excess of $20 million in a new civic center. Number 3, legal fees. District's insistence on identifying the legal expenses directly related to the city's desire to prematurely absorb ratepayer assets currently managed by the district instead of constructively working with the district. Fees are in excess of $200,000 and counting, with zero ratepayer value to date. Undoubtedly, this latest city's attempt of premature assumption will add tens of thousands of dollars of legal expenses with, again, no ratepayer value. Number 4, hiring process of the district's recent general manager. The city's recommended hiring process was inconsistent with their own hiring practices. In fact, as part of the city's official protest dated October 12, 2020, Mayor Gailey wrote, and I quote, formally request the district's legal counsel to review this matter to ensure it complies with Washington State's ethics code, end quote. When comparing the city's recommendations to comply with a specific, highly analytical and quantifiable process, as well as ethic code compliance, I see a fair amount of hypocrisy comparing the city's actual hiring practices to their last 2 park and recreation managers, one of which ended up being the mayor's brother-in-law, and the second person was hired while being in a personal relationship with a city council member. Number 5, breach of public meeting laws.
Chairman, can I have a point of order, please?
Pardon me?
Can I have a point of order? This is a discussion about whether we're going to amicably do something. It's not a position to air out supposed dirty laundry, and I think it's inappropriate.
That's fine. I'm almost finished. Number 5, breach of public meeting laws by a city employee. On October 16, 2020, a city employee who by district records had never previously attended a district meeting dialed into a posted executive session, ignored or did not hear 3 announcements of an executive session, then proceeded to listen in for 15 minutes. Only when the district staff discovered that the dial-in caller was not a double entry on the meeting platform was the caller forcibly disconnected. Upon further research by the district, it was discovered that the person in question was a manager level employee at the city. The cell phone in question, when called, did not have a voicemail set up, nor did the city's front office staff recognize the number. The explanation provided by Mayor Gailey lacks sufficient details to satisfy the district, presents a substantial breach of conduct, and a Freedom of Information Act was submitted. The district's investigation into this situation is still ongoing. My last one, number 6, questionable synergy savings. The city's recently cited independent analysis, which cost the community another $30,000, indicates the savings would range from negative $25,000 to positive $595,000. The district was not provided an opportunity to review the report prior to publishing. The analysis has underlying errors in both research and assumptions, and if savings are a key focus of the city could save an equal amount at the midpoint of the independent analysis finding by continuing to pay our current mayor the compensation that was in place when he chose to run for the position and not increase the compensation by 4x or approximately $80,000 a year after less than a year in office. In summary, the district has delivered on key benefits and considerations the city desired as part of the 2005 unification agreement when it was signed. Since 2016, the city has repeatedly attempted to deprive the district of our benefit and consideration outlined in the 2005 unification agreement by prematurely forcing the assumption of the district. The timing of the latest attempt by the city to prematurely assume the ratepayer assets coincides with a series of ratepayer value stances the district has taken, including appropriate use of ratepayer money assets against Costco, underlying infrastructure. Number 2, appropriate use of ratepayer assets as proposed for the new civic center. Number 3, zero ratepayer value coming from over $200,000 of city-initiated legal expenses and the district's insistence to track and report on those legal expenses. Number 4, hypocritical recommendations in hiring process. And number 5, city's breach of public meeting laws. And 6, questionable synergy savings. Given the history, approach, and fact pattern presented, I believe the city's motivations are more aligned with absorbing the district's substantial financial reserves and to have 100% control of both sewer rates and the ability to levy a utility tax on said rates. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other comments from the district side? Hearing none. Just out of curiosity, we have a person on the line, Pat Cook, who is on here twice. Is that a district employee or citizen, or anybody know? Not a
I
big
think
deal.
Mr. Cook is a citizen. He's not a district employee.
Okay. On here twice. Anyway, with that, discussion from the city side. Mayor Daley?
I would just go ahead and, I would agree with the point that the sewer district is in a great financial position. You guys are doing a good job in making sure rates are low. And this is a great opportunity. This this assumption is a great opportunity to further that savings for taxpayers, and as well as create less government within our community. And therefore, I will be voting for this resolution.
Councilmember Tadgett?
I think it was a great report put out by Moss Adams. It was a very neutral report. I think it shows that there's good savings and synergy between the two groups. I'll be voting for this as well.
My only comments would be appreciate all the homework you guys did putting together your presentations from the district side. A lot of work doing that. Obviously, we don't agree 100% with what you've probably previously stated. I would like to see a situation where we can move forward together. And I think this resolution hopefully would do that. The area or the airing of grievances, or for lack of a better term, dirty laundry, goes both ways. So if we want to throw mud at each other, well, you know, I guess so be it, but I'm not going to play that game. So I would urge that we move forward together and quit this nonsense of going back and forth. We had a situation not too long ago where, under the guise of the unification agreement, the utility committee is supposed to provide some oversight. And through this process of hiring a general manager, I don't care if we're talking about the Open Meetings Act or the ethical hiring of people or whatever, just a courtesy of having a discussion would be probably go much further than any of those two issues. So my hope is we move forward collaboratively and quit this nonsense. So I'm going to support this resolution just from that very reason. So you guys are personal friends, and let's move forward. Okay. So with that,
You know what? One moment, Councilmember Peter Shagan. I just want to add. I mean, you say we're personal friends, and I would love, and I would like to see us. And I think that you know, friends would reach out to one another and be able to have this side dialogue. I get it; it takes both sides, and I extended an olive branch to the mayor on the 4th of this last month, where I had coffee with him. And that was days before. And obviously, you guys may have already had some discussions on it, but there was nothing that came forth to be able to say, hey, by the way, this is coming down the pipeline. I get it. I mean, we all represent voters because we're elected to our positions to do that. But it takes the extension. I've mentioned it in numerous meetings about this, is saying, hey, pick up the phone, talk to us, call us. You all know my phone number. I can guarantee it. It's out there. So I've never received a phone call from you or any of the others. I've initiated phone calls generally. At times, yeah, maybe I'm not initiating them as fast as I need to, but nobody's ever picked up the phone and called me and said, hey, let's have a cup of coffee and have some discussions about some of this stuff. This resolution that suddenly comes to the Board of Commissioners in our utility meeting, I think it's a wedge. I think it's driving a wedge. And you're right, we need to work on this thing and move forward. By putting a resolution in front that is going to, yeah, it's unfortunate that the public is hearing some of the dirty laundry, as you guys are saying. These are things that have been well known, so it's not dirty as much as we probably didn't like to see them out there. I think our ratepayers and constituents that vote for us would like to look at it from the perspective that we hired you folks, meaning myself and you guys, to do a job and to be able to do the work that needs to be done in a way that is going to have ratepayer value, whether it is the district that's offering the ratepayer value or the city that's offering the ratepayer value. And we think that the model that is currently in play is the best model. We understand, we have never disputed about this unification agreement that it will eventually get there. We're still 12 years away. I get it. If we were like 2 years, 3 years away, let's talk, let's do it. Let's make it happen now. But it just seems very convenient that all of a sudden, after we have upheld the district standpoint of this unification annexation agreement to do it, that all of a sudden now it's null and void because you guys are a revenue source. So that's what we appear to be, as a revenue source. We understand. I mean, it's not the city's fault that the taxing ways things are done in the state of Washington are they are. I mean, cities kind of get the short end of the stick sometimes, and you have some services you have to supply for. But we don't feel that it should be done on the backs of the sewer district ratepayers in that sense. And that's where we're at. And passing this, I think that's where, if we want to start saying, hey, let's have some frank discussions and really kickstart 2021 about meeting one-on-one if we need to. Rescinding your resolution is a good start. Just saying.
I don't think that we've ever thought as a sewer district as a revenue source. That has never been a key point for us whatsoever. So that's never been a point for, I think, for myself at least. I've never thought of the sewer district as a revenue source, as there's still a lot of capital improvements that still need to be completed. So
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from, Dan, because that hasn't been part of our discussion. I don't, you can believe that or you cannot, but that hasn't been part of our discussion. The main thrust of the discussion is to get on the same page. And we can go around in circles all day, I guess, but
Well, I think we should put this action item to bed so we can move on. The only question I had was in regards to the Moss Adams report, what additional city staff or city council or mayor work was done in addition to what I read in the Moss Adams report? Was there any additional, when that report came out to the city, was there additional work that the city did on top of that, or did pretty much take the Moss Adams report as was written and that's what was ran with?
what do you mean by additional work?
Well, I mean, I read
I sat in some meetings with them. Yeah.
Here's what I mean. I mean, I believe the preamble from Moss Adams, I mean, they do like a lot of consultants do. They do a series of qualifications at the front end, but the objective of our engagements was to assist you in your assessment of the risks and opportunities. The information that you provided us directed towards those business activities, data that you identified as important, so they kind of point to, hey, we've kind of taken the information that was provided to us and here you go, but you need to assess it and analyze it and put things around it to have it be a complete and holistic package. And I'm just curious if that work was done or if it was, hey, we got a Moss Adams report that let's pick the high number and let's put it in a press release and let's put it in an ordinance and try to move forward. Was there extra work done around the Moss Adams report or was it just taken and ran with?
I would suggest that we read the report, we accepted the report, helped to verify the numbers as well. I'm not sure where you're trying to go with this, Kevin. I
That the part of verifying the numbers piece would, we read it and it sounded good to us, or was there additional material work done to validate it? Or
If I can jump in here, Brett. We engaged with Moss Adams to help us, okay? And through that process, they gave us a proposal for kind of a 3-phase type analysis. And we took the cheapest road because we didn't want to spend a lot of money on it at this stage. We wanted some help with a third party that takes a look from the outside and see what they observe and see if there's any potential for cost savings by merging these two entities together. And that's as simple as it was. We had a series of probably 3 or 4 conference calls with them, just discussing. They had some questions, can't specifically right at the moment what they were, but it was a very high level review, and we did not spend a lot of time on it. It was to get an independent opinion as to where there might be some potential savings by putting these two entities together. And it was as simple as that. We chose not to go to phase 2 because it was much more expensive, and it was at this point, what's the point of spending all these resources to get something that we don't know where it's going? So that's as far as it was.
Okay.
Or as far as it wasn't a deep dive by any means, Kevin.
Okay, fair enough.
I think we also, there's a disagreement between the sewer and the city if there would be savings or not. And we wanted someone to take an independent look, who could look in it from the outside, like Gary said. And also offered to include you guys into this study and help pay for it. That way we could get this point. We've been trying to work on these points, whether there's savings or not. We see it differently. So we get an independent party, and we offered you guys to be part of this. You guys declined.
Well, just a point of clarity. So I was personally interviewed by Moss Adams as part of it. So the district was involved in it. The district bristled at the idea of having 2 full-time staff members dedicated during the time of the study. And so alternative approach that went forward by both parties, but it sounds like interviews. I was interviewed. I think there was a couple other individuals at the district that was interviewed to put inputs into that. So we were involved. We didn't receive a copy of it ahead of time, and best practice on most professional service reports, which is the industry I'm in, is the folks that provide input end up validating the input that's going into it, so it's accurate. That wasn't done, but for whatever reason. And my last comment is it's the Moss Adams report. The net of it is you might save something, you might not. Now the high number, the optimistic number, which again the underlying inputs into it are inaccurate, but even that being said, the high number is what was latched onto and put in press releases and so forth. When if you read the report, it says you might actually cost you more money than it's going to save you. So anyway, those are my questions on the report. I appreciate the input from the city.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but the reason for the difference in the cost is due to legal fees, correct?
Well, it's hard for me to answer that because it's riddled with so many errors in the facts pattern that underlie their analysis that I don't think pulling one piece out is going to get us to an accurate conclusion. So
I mean, I think I don't want to belabor this point, but I think there's a fundamental agreement on our side of the table that by combining resources of 2 entities, there's redundancy somewhere. And obviously there's some savings in regards to that without even commissioning a report. So again, we asked Moss Adams for some help to try to identify some possibilities. And that's as far as it went. So
fair enough.
Any other comments before we call for a vote?
Could I just say something real quick? I know that I'm new to this whole process and procedures, but I just wanted to say that I feel like my primary duty for being a commissioner is to the ratepayer. And that's going to be my primary focus. And just from everything I've heard and read, it feels like the ordinance that was passed by the city does violate the 2005 unification agreement. And that's just simply put on my part. I feel like there isn't a mutual agreement for the city and the district, unfortunately. So just, I guess that's my input. Simple, but that's my input.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Chair, I'm going to call for a vote.
Okay. Call for a vote on resolution number 2020-01, a resolution of Lake Stevens Sewer Utility Committee agreeing to a collaborative transfer of the unified sewer system from Lake Stevens Sewer District to the city of Lake Stevens. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have Mayor Gailey. Raise a hand, maybe. If Mayor Gailey, Councilman Tangent, myself, Councilmember Peters Hagen, all those not in favor of passing this resolution number 2020, please raise their hands. Commissioner Kevin Koshi,
Nay.
Commissioner Dan Lawrenson, and Commissioner Jennifer Stevenson. Okay,
That's a shocking vote tally.
should take a prediction on that one, Kevin. So with that, let's move to the public forum. Non-action items. Do we have any?
We have 2 items before public forum. I think we have employee retention, we have reserve fund assurance.
Were those on an
I have
agenda somewhere?
They were on the revised agenda that I printed this morning. I think we also had E, which was Dan's on the front end, his request for a meeting schedule for next year.
Yes. I did not print the update.
I'd like to make a comment if possible.
Could you please identify yourself?
I asked the employee, I asked for those first 2. I asked for B, C and D, C being employee retention, D being reserve fund assurance. So if I have my colleagues allow me, I'll read a short, much shorter prepared statement on those. We can have any discussion or not.
Yeah, I don't have a problem, but I think that there was a citizen wanting to.
I have a comment.
Yeah, we have public forum on 4, which is after the section, but however we want to run it, I'm fine.
Let's
I mean,
let's take care of the public comment right now.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
So the caller, if they could identify themselves, you have the floor.
My name is Pat Cook.
Mhm.
Hi, my name is Pat Cook, and I just have a comment. You know, we hear a lot about how small government is the best type of government. It's not bloated. It operates more efficiency. In a special purpose district like the sewer district, which should be extremely commended on the facilities that they have and what they're doing for the environment, has done this without city government intervention for years. And I look at a special purpose district as they have one service to provide to the taxpayers, and that's sewer. And when a city takes over a special purpose district, we lose that efficiency because the larger government decides that, you know, we're going to put money into the general fund, and then the city, who are not experts at providing sewer service to the community, decides for the sewer district, or now the new service department, what they believe that they need to operate their operations, you know, what type of funds. And then what you have is you have competing agencies within the city that are always trying to receive more money so that they can improve their parks. Maybe garbage needs more, roads, the sewer district, water, etc. And it becomes an inefficient form of government. And so by the city taking over the sewer district, what you're going to have is you're going to have inflated costs for the taxpayer. You know, a special purpose district, they're able to collect money, put money into reserve for future growth, for future maintenance and operations and cost. And when it goes into the hands of the city, then the city determines what the sewer district needs. And I just think that that is an inefficient way for government to operate. In my mind, the smallest form of government is the best form of government. And a city government, what they should focus on is governing and not running parks, not running roads, not running sewer, not running water, garbage, etc. And, you know, if you want to make Lake Stevens government larger, well, that's extremely inefficient. And I have quite a bit of experience with special purpose districts. And I've seen this, that when we get larger, we become more inefficient. And we always say, well, you know, there'll be a cost savings, but they can never project or pinpoint, you know, a spot in time when they'll start saving money. And so I don't think that the city should take over the sewer district. They've been operating efficiently and effectively for years. They have the taxpayers' best interest, and they do a far better job of focusing on one aspect, and that's providing the best possible sewer district or sewer service to their community at a much lower rate. And so for the government to get involved, or for the city to get involved, in my estimation, sewer rates are going to increase. You know, the monies that are collected from the taxpayers are going to go into the general fund, and then those monies are going to be dispersed to other projects, and the taxpayer is going to lose in the end. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments, Pat. Any other comments from public? Is anyone out there? We have Andrea Wright.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'd like to echo Mr. Cook's comments. In resolution 2020-01, it states a collaborative transfer will result in, and then you listed 4 main comments. First, which is the reduction of costs to ratepayers and taxpayers. So you are saying my bill is going to be reduced, which is impossible. As an average citizen, this completely looks like a money grab. Even after much research of talking to many of you, I still cannot understand the rush to consolidate the sewer district with the city right now. Washington State and all of the surrounding cities are slashing their budgets. Snohomish just cut $54 million out of their budget. Why is Lake Stevens not reducing their budget? Instead, we're moving on with expensive projects like downtown, 20th Street Southeast, Costco, and the Civic Center that we don't have the revenue for. Pick one project and put the rest on hold. I'd feel more confident in the city's fiscal responsibility if the Chapel Hill property was for sale and the 2021 budget was being reduced. Instead, I'm getting Facebook requests to fill out a questionnaire on the new Civic Center when we haven't even been able to meet in the community in groups of 10 or more for the last 9 months. This is tone deaf. Our local gyms, restaurants, small businesses are barely making it financially, yet the city just hired 5 more employees and added a hefty mayor's salary. The sewer district has seen a decrease in revenue through the pandemic, just from businesses, restaurants, and schools being shut down. On the city's website, it says that savings for the ratepayer will be about $560,000 in 3 years. That is minimal. No one is talking about the true cost of the consolidation and closing costs of joining 2 businesses together. Moss Adams, your agreed upon independent consultant, estimates this cost from 2018 to be $2 million. That's accounting, closing costs, attorney fees. I understand that combining 2 entities that there can be savings on equipment and employees, but these savings are never going to be passed on to the ratepayer. Second, you mentioned that the city is going to better manage growth. Well, the sewer district seemed to be the only entity prepared for the enormous housing boom in Lake Stevens. And as far as managing growth in the city, ask any resident and they will tell you that our city has shown its inability to keep up with the massive housing growth and transportation boom. On a personal note, my experience in working with the city with minor issues in my neighborhood and major issues in the development behind my home is that the city will gladly look the other way for developers and builders. They are not the advocate or watchdog for the residents. When every time I hear the sewer district speak, they always talk about the ratepayer and our benefits. The other major concern to me is in reading your minutes from the last meeting, you mentioned a typo of a 2% utility tax in the annexation fax letter. That's not a typo. A typo is when you say you type 2 or 3 wrong. That's an error. And this is concerning to me for someone who's going to manage another company or division. Third, you mentioned that there's going to be enhanced economic development. So there's been much discussion about the Hartford industrial area and putting in a sewer trunk line. However, many of those existing businesses in that area don't even want sewer. And I wonder if it's realistic to consider Hartford as a major industrial growth when the road is sinking, there's significant water runoff, and the wetlands haven't been addressed. Fourth, the reduction in government. This is not a reduction in government. It's beefing up the city's potential revenue and bank accounts, period. I would love to see a reduction in government. All of this comes down on the shoulders of the citizens during a major financial uncertain time and an incredibly taxing year. The sewer district constantly is asking if their decisions are in the best interest of the ratepayer. What I'd like the city to ask is this in the best interest of the taxpayer? And the answer clearly is no. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. With that, I don't see any other comments. Nobody raising hands or anything. So let's move back up to item C under action items. And Kevin, Commissioner Kochi, you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah, so employee retention, there's been some discussion in this forum about, things being discussed ahead of time with commissioners. So I haven't shared this with any of my commissioners. So I want my city partners to be assured that you're receiving this information the same time as my fellow commissioners. And with a commissioner board of 3, it's the most purest form of government because I can't talk to anybody unless I'm in a public forum or an executive session. So I'm hitting them with this cold, both this one and the next one. So just for context, the district's employees are the reason why the district has achieved the multitude of accolades and the outstanding financial results for the past 5 years. Employees who know that they are appreciated, supported, and have a degree of predictability in their jobs are much more likely to solidify into a team who delivers exceptional results and one that has a culture of accountability. While we are an imperfect organization, we have found ways to amplify each of our unique strengths, and in doing so, have delivered both exceptional environmental value and ratepayer value. Over the past 5 years, the repeated attempts by the city to prematurely absorb the ratepayers' assets currently managed by the district has impacted the degree of predictability our employees have been promised. Because of these actions by the city, I believe the district now needs to explore ways that we can provide our rank and file employees additional assurance. I welcome input from my utility board members on the following approach, which I hope to start solidifying in the coming weeks. To provide employees an additional assurance of their employment, the following compensation would be granted for any employee involuntarily separated, not for cause, prior to 2033. 5 to 15 years of completed service, 3 months of compensation. 15 to 20 years of completed service, 4 months of compensation. 20 plus years of completed service, 6 months of compensation. Our employees are valuable individuals, not synergy estimates. Note, the above approach costs our ratepayers $0 as long as our district employees are treated fairly. I'm open for comments or discussion or any recommendations that the city would like to make.
Could you send what you just stated to us so that we can
Absolutely
actually absorb that and maybe put that on the agenda for next meeting?
Certainly.
Any kind of decision at this point? So your next item is item D.
Yeah, next item D is reserve fund assurance. Same thing. I haven't talked to my commissioners about this. Everybody's being hit cold at the same time. In early 2000s, the district's commissioners decided to increase rates in anticipation of a new sewer plant build. The desire was to raise rates slowly, advance of the capital spend and resulting increase in operating expense, debt payments, so that rates could be more stable over the long run. Of the monies collected, there are 2 pools which remain on the district's books. There's a $4.4 million in 131-44/136-44 call that we were affectionately referred to as the Rate Stabilization Fund. There's an additional $3.6 million in 131-46/136-46 that we refer to as SRF reserves. The SRF reserves are required by our bondholders to have those monies set aside until the bonds are paid off. The $4.4 million of rate stabilization is not encumbered. I believe it's of paramount importance that both of these pools of monies are utilized at the time that they are unencumbered for the specific purpose for which they were collected. A, reducing principal on existing bonds, and or B, defraying future rate increases, and or C, returning the monies to the rate base. Their SRF reserve funds need to stay in place until the SRF bond requirements are satisfied. The rate stabilization funds can be addressed immediately. In the case of the rate stabilization funds, the district has proven that we can deliver high quality service, in fact, recognized statewide, at our existing rate structure. No increase over the past 5 years, no plans to increase rates for 2021. And based on the latest budget review, I'd say probably 2022. So the question is, if we no longer need the rate stabilization funds to stabilize rates, and if we do not have bond provisions that allow advance payment of principal, so if we can't pay bonds down and we don't need the funds for rate stabilizations, should we consider returning the $4.4 million back to our rate base in a way of a credit to the ratepayer? Based on recent community input, it might be worth the expense to do an advisory ballot so that we can hear directly from the rate base as to their preference. One approach could be to return the monies now, let the ratepayer utilize their monies for their own needs, and then raise rates later at a later date only when it's completely necessary. I welcome anybody's thoughts.
Again, that's a lot to absorb, so if you could send that over to us so we can absorb that, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely, I'll send it over, but essentially it's a pretty simple concept. We have $4.4 million. Do we return to the rate base? Do we pay down bonds, or do we hang on to it for future rate stabilization? So that's the.
I guess I would ask a question right now, and hopefully you can educate me. What do you need a rate stabilization fund for if your rates are so stable?
Yeah, that's a very good question. In fact, that rate or those funds were $8 million, over $8 million a couple of years ago. And when we did the last bond refinance, we took the opportunity to take half of the rate stabilization funds and apply it to principal in the bonds, which is one of the reasons why we've been able to rapidly pay down the bonds faster than anybody anticipated. The other half is still there, and it wasn't always so certain is the answer. I mean, we were, our financial position when we took on the $110 million of the plant was not as predictable as it is now, and through hard work from, frankly, the district's employees and previous commissioners before, certainly before me, has now yielded the results where we're in this position to be able to make the call.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that, just hearing that. I mean, I think that that is about you giving back. The money was collected to either pay for the debt on the treatment plant, paying the bonds down, and if there are provisions that we cannot do that, I think as elected officials, we have a duty to return the ratepayers' money, whether that is a credit to them or we reduce the rates. If that's something that we can look at, that we get 5 years out of that $4 million by reducing the rates to be able to meet the needs. I think that's something as a responsible government is that we look at trying to minimize costs. It's not about just collecting taxpayers' dollars because we can. So I welcome having more discussion if that's going to be something in there. But I don't think that we have to waste money to run a special election to get an advisory vote, because that costs money. I mean, I don't think there's a taxpayer out there or ratepayer out there that's going to argue that keep my money or give it back to me. I think it's pretty clear, given the economic times that we are in. And I will just add to that, we just received over, I think, $13,000 from the Volunteers of America to be able to pay down some of our ratepayer bills that could not afford it. So that really speaks volumes that we have some people struggling there, that we could apply $13,000 to the CARES Act that came from the Volunteers of America. So yeah, I'm very open to something like that. And I think that if the Utility Committee wants to have a discussion in our first meeting coming up here in 2021, hey, let's do it. We should move more quickly.
All good points. Another factor to keep in mind is you have talked about future upgrades to the sewer treatment plant. Maybe some of that money should be used as reserves for that to not impact the ratepayers at a future date. So there's a lot to be discussed there.
Yeah.
And just a point given here, City of Lake Stevens gave $150,000 to the Volunteers of America to help distribute to make these payments for these unfortunate circumstances on utilities. So it's all a big circle. So
yeah. Just to clarify, I don't think we're going to go into the financials today, but so those are two reserve funds. The district, as of when we reviewed this in November at our meeting, we have, there's additional reserves. Total capital reserves are around 8 to 10 million, depending on where we are on payments in our last large project. So there's capital reserves in multitudes of millions. And then we also carry approximately $3 million of additional OPEX reserves. And those monies are separate from the two pools that we're talking about here.
yes.
Is the upgrade going to be about 50 million? Was that the number that was thrown out somewhere right around that?
No, it was never 50 million.
So about 30 million, wasn't it?
I think what's in the current capital plan, I don't have that in front of me. Jonathan might be able to point to it, but I believe there's a placeholder for plant enhancement, and I think it's in the mid-20s.
Okay. Tanya gave me a thumbs down number, so
Yeah.
I gave everybody a thumbs down.
So a question I have, and if we can get money back to the taxpayers, that's a win, right? Was this discussion brought up when you guys were setting the rates for 2021?
Well, we don't set rates each year. We can evaluate them at any time during the year. And each time how we do the finance piece of it, kind of one of the key summary documents that's in our package is always page 13 of 13. Lucky page 13 is how I remember it. And what this really summarizes is the history and kind of the key cash flow and how well we're doing in terms of our predictability around what we thought we're going to end the year at and where we're at, and we recast it over the next quarter so that we refine our estimating process. And so every time we go through the financials, we look at it and say, what is the trending rate to the OPEX reserve line at the end of the year? Now, if that line is going up, or ideally it's staying stable, right? That would be fantastic, because it means our current rates are supporting that OPEX. If it's going up, it tells us, is there a reason for us to squirrel away more reserves because we think something's coming up? If it's going down over a period of time, we need to start talking about and looking at a rate increase. So that $3 million reserve allows that buffer as we analyze, as we go through, so we don't have to do anything quickly. We can be very, very predictable about the actions. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's
Kevin, can I actually say something too? So Brett, when we actually talked about not raising the rates, it was actually probably in second quarter when we realized that COVID was going to last a little while longer. And working in the administration office, we could start seeing customers start calling. And being that we just went through 2008, 2010, when customers and friends that we all know were losing their homes and filing bankruptcy, we took a serious hard look at the budget. And we always realized that we have some of this other revenue that if we had to, we could do it. But we didn't know if we were going to be looking at a 2008, 2010 when residents were losing their home. And so we made a decision, I think it was like April or May, not to raise rates for 21 because we didn't know where we were coming from. So it wasn't just a all of a sudden decision to use this, rate stabilization for something else. It's been the fact that we've looked at our budget on a consistent basis. We do the quarterly presentations. The board always saw it on a monthly basis. So it was just our due diligence to really take a serious look and to recognize that we have to make an adjustment in our budget as well and not impact the customers that we serve in the city of Lake Stevens. So it goes way back to the first part of this year with the first part of COVID rolling out.
In full transparency and fairness, one of the reasons why the district has been so successful in terms of balancing those rate increases is because of the growth we've seen in Lake Stevens. So there is a causality there, right? Because we're adding more ratepayers, the infrastructure essentially, the cost of the infrastructure that's in the ground is a step function, right? It doesn't go up each time. So we have more ratepayers sharing the burden of the same, or basically the same infrastructure that's in the ground, and that provides, economic leverage for us to be able to make sure rates stay stable. So there is a yin and a yang relative to what shows up on our balance sheet, of course, and what we're looking at growth and bringing new ratepayers on. So in fairness.
So do we get blamed for that also?
No, see, that was actually my backhanded compliment in the best way I could produce it in this.
Appreciate that. We've got to take credit for something. Gosh sakes. So.
And I think we do need to have a point of order. Tanya, I know that you are retired. Are you speaking as a citizen or a little extra contract over to help advise? What are you speaking as?
So for the month of December, I am still an employee. And so I have retired, but I am working with the transition with both Mariah and Roz. And I'm working on a very, very part-time. I think I'm like at a whopping maybe 10 hours if I'm lucky this week.
Excellent. Well, we're glad we have your wisdom with us still.
You bet.
All right, thank you. So on to, let's see, Dan, I believe you had something, item E, was it?
Yeah, so we generally, as we had spoken as a utility committee in the past, we're trying to come up with a way to be able to speak so we can maximize our allotted times as the two organizations are busy. And so, we generally set everything based on the unification agreement, which we meet quarterly. And we're trying, I guess, what I'm trying to do now, being chair for 21, the first quarter speaking points are going to be, obviously in this coming quarter, we're going to probably be talking about some of the reserve monies and what shall we do there. So we're trying to kind of put it in line where it's relevant to the timing of how we are doing things, whether it's capital, whether it's budget, things that are coming up, or even as we're going into the new docket for the Urban Growth Management Act in 21 before 23 comes around as they want to have input. So it's just trying to maximize the best time resource and be able to say, hey, in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, let's try to keep on topic and plan out accordingly. That way it's not haphazard. And at least both sides can come in with the expectation of knowing exactly where we're going to be, that this first quarter is going to be. I mean, obviously there's going to be things that are going to come up that are unavoidable and we'll put on there. But I think that having some planning is relevant to what we do. It also sets out a timeline that if there are ratepayers or constituents out there that want to address, they'll know what time is best that they can at least speak knowing that that's on maybe the agenda.
Okay, great. Makes too much sense. So appreciate that. Let's go to information sharing. I think this is probably Gene's category here. We did get the report back from the old wastewater treatment plant, the environmental study, and I'll let Gene take that.
Thank you very much. Pushed hard to get this contract or this report out, and there was a lot of work. It came in so late last night, but at least we did get it, and I was able to send that over to you folks to have a look at it. Bottom line is the site's really pretty clean, so that's great news for everybody. In anticipation of that, we did draft a letter to accept that property from the district to the city. It's got Mayor Gailey's name on that, so we will get that over to the district. The one question that I still have in my mind is the city able to accept that through the mayor, or do we have to go through the council to be able to accept that property? There's some logistics I need to sort out here today with the city attorney, but either way, we have that letter prepared for you, and we'll get that over to the district.
Oh,
That's great.
excellent.
I think we should, on our side, work through our attorneys, make sure that we're preparing then in anticipation of that acceptance letter, whatever form it takes through council. Make sure that we're squared up on, is it a quick claim deed to the city? What's the vehicle in which that we do the transfer and make sure it meets all the RCWs?
Sure. That I would think that would be appropriate on both sides. The city attorney and district attorney talking to actually facilitate the agreement. So, and I don't think there is any objection on Councilmember Tadgen's part or my part or the mayor's to at least recommend to the city council to not accept that property. So I'm just kind of seeing some heads nod maybe.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, so that'll be initiated. So I would think. So with that, district budget forecast review, who is taking that?
Well, I think this one, we've covered a lot of the district's finances just as part and parcel as we've come through. We reviewed them in a district meeting in quite depth a couple meetings ago. I guess I just asked, and I believe we also provided I think it was all the way through September financials and provided that to the council members. I guess I just entertain if there's any specific questions that you have. The summary is it's in great shape, but is there any specific questions on any items or what have you? If you do, we can entertain those. I think Mickey's flying off to on a vacation or something, but we're probably equipped to field most of the questions if there are any.
I'm not aware of any questions on our side of the table at this point. So,
okay.
Yeah.
You do it.
With that, item C is the Civic Center discussion. I'm assuming Mayor Gailey can handle that. I have to step away for a second for an emergency phone call, and I will be right back. So I will turn it over to Mayor Gailey for this discussion. Thank you.
Yes, we're still in the planning design sort of a phase with Stowe development, and we're waiting to hear back some more information from the library on what they want to look like within this project. There was some initial numbers given that make this a pretty hefty project that but with those numbers, we also are looking at ways to mitigate the expenses and possibly do some shared leasing, that sort of thing, to help pay for this project if we can get there. Any questions for me?
Are you guys still hosting your meetings on that? I mean, I'm going to assume that there's still a working group towards kind of coming up with a.
Yeah, in fact, there's a meeting today on it. Mariah, do you plan on being in on that, or?
Yes, I do. It's at 2 o'clock.
Yep. See no other questions on that. This, do we need to have a utility agreement discussion?
I think this line item is a placeholder for having to continue to work through the items that are identified in mediation. But given the ordinance and the resolution and the ensuing discussion, that probably should be filtered out first. And I think the ball's in the city's court on that one. And then we decide how to move forward. I would say that, speaking as one council member, I would certainly be in favor of outlining the 4 meetings per contract that we're to have together and get those dates set as Commissioner Lawrenson had indicated. I certainly would be open to any additional meetings in addition to those 4 as it relates to working through the items that were identified in mediation and trying to find a path forward that's more productive on the operating side of things. So, but other than that, that's what that's how I think we should address it. Solve what we've talked about today, move forward, do the 4 meetings, add on if that's the path that we want to take to try to find a path forward.
Okay, and I think under item 8, we can schedule the next meetings for the next year. Does that work for you, Kevin?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, one thing that I'd add, Mayor, is I know on our side we just identified that obviously I'll be taking the reins as far as representing for the chair of it, and we'll discuss. If there is, I mean, I know that between the 3 council or 2 council members and yourself as the mayor, we'll probably have that discussion. If you guys have somebody internally that wants to come forward, I'd be more than happy to meet so we can kind of hammer out an outline to bring back respectively to everybody so we can put some of these things in line. I think obviously the first one in the beginning of the 2021 year and the first quarter is going to be the reserve fund along with this resolutions and ordinance. So that way we can get kind of back on track. And
Gary, you have the ball. Get the ball back to you.
All right. So end of discussion.
We're project review, and then we'll schedule for next year.
Okay, sounds great. Item number 6, utility agreement. I have no idea what
we hit that. We hit that. Let's go to 7.
7, project review, Costco updates, decant facilities. Russ or Eric on the line, or Gene, whoever.
Councilmember Peter Shagan, this is Russ. I'm here today. Yeah, the city is over 1,000 building permits for the year, as the district well knows, for all of those single family. That also includes things like tenant improvements, some different types of plumbing permits, but this would be a new high for the city for building permits in a single year. And our land use permits are probably well over, getting close to 200 land use permits for the year. So we're averaging, say, 5 intakes a day, if you want to break that down into statistics. So again, a really big year. As far as the Costco development, the city did win its appeal from the hearing examiner, and the claims of the appellant were dismissed on both legal and factual grounds, and the appellant has moved on to an appeal to Superior Court under a land use action, and we're hoping that that gets resolved early into the year. Several of the city projects are wrapping up. The decant facility, as you know, is well underway, and development of North Cove Park Phase 2 is moving along at a rapid pace. If there are any other development questions, I'm happy to answer those for the group. Okay, thank you.
Gene, can you give us update on the decant, or Jonathan maybe? No, either one.
Yeah, I can take that one if you want, Gene.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, Yeah, so I guess today they are pouring the vertical walls for each of the decamp bays. All of the underground structures have been set and just working through a couple of, I guess, minor items on valve placements and stuff like that. So it's progressing and the crew out there is doing a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Gene, we were told we're still looking at January for the completion of that. Is that still true from your point of view as well?
That's what I've been told as well, Mariah. It's my understanding that the steel part of the building has been ordered, and that's taking some time to get, and maybe Jonathan can confirm that, but I would be surprised if it's done by the end of January, but that's just my view of it.
Yeah, I think there was a comment from the structural engineer that required modification to the prefab steel building, and trying to get shop drawings from some of the prefab manufacturers is very, very difficult. Any review or revision takes a very long time to get back. So there was a delay on getting that ordered, but it's ordered and on its way.
Okay. Gene, can you give us just a quick update on North Cove Park?
Certainly can. North Cove Phase 2 is under construction. 2 under construction. Been put in. The playground structure has been installed. A really cool turf product around it, so that'll be a different look for Lake Stevens. When I say turf, it looks like grass, but it meets all the ADA standards, and that particular playground structure is fully ADA accessible. So it's the first one in Lake Stevens that's like that. We're pretty excited about it. The Phase 2 construction includes a restroom and picnic shelter, and that is framed up, and they're doing all the utilities in there now. And the project also includes a viewing deck for people to sit and enjoy the view of the lake, and hopefully future summer concert series once this COVID pandemic is resolved.
Thank you for that. Does a sewer district have any updates for projects or anything that's ongoing, Jonathan?
Yeah. I think it was last week we received the 30% plans for the downtown business loop gravity line replacement. There's a lot of lines down there that are very hard to service, or we can't get in there with our camera truck. So we've elected to replace about 1,500 feet of sewer, a little bit on Main Street, goes up to 18th, over to 125th, up 125th, all the way back to 20th Street, and then from 125th and 20th Street out to Grade Road and 20th. So all that sewer pipes being replaced, and we have the 30% plans that I should be done reviewing, hopefully by the end of next week, and then we'll send over to Grace and Eric for their comments as well.
Great, thank you. So with that, Dan, did you, or I don't know, whoever wants to schedule a next meeting, we're talking January or something, or what?
Yeah, I mean, we can start in January if you want to do that. I would just say that I think we normally take the last Tuesday of the month. In that case, it would be the 26th of January. I think that would give time. If the board is on our app, and also with the utility committee members on the city council side, we normally set up for 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's fine with me.
Okay. I think what we should do, probably, I think what you may have stepped away, or you were in, we've been here a long time, so I'm old and forgetful. I think that if on the city side, between the utility committee members want to kind of have a discussion about who they want to just have as a talking point to myself, and we can kind of plan some things and dates out, and I can get back to the rest of the commissioners. I mean, right now we have it set as generally by unification agreement every quarter, but obviously we're willing to work in that. I think the first thing that we should have the discussion over to begin with in the first meeting of the year is going to be obviously on the reserve funds, the unification agreement in regards to the ordinances and everything else, because there's probably going to be some more discussion back and forth between the organizations before we even get there. And then that will kind of set there. We'll come back, we'll take a look at like some of the things that we have in line for what we look at and like to talk as a board of commissioners when it comes to arranging for our budgets, capitals, comprehensive plan updates and everything. It just gives a better inline and get input from you folks and vice versa.
Great. Then Kevin, you're going to send over those two things you talked about as far as employee retention and the rate stabilization information.
Yep.
For budget.
I'll have both those sent over just to the distribution of the meeting request here, so everybody's got it.
Thank you. So I guess we're kind of to the end of things. Jennifer, welcome to these meetings, the utility committee. So
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
yeah, glad to have you aboard. Another opinion is always helpful. With that, hopefully there's nothing else for the order today. I would like to adjourn this meeting and everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I just want to thank the public for their involvement in coming in today. I think it's great to get some public feedback. So everybody have a great holiday, and we'll see you in 2021.
Have a great holiday.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.